you, Pastor, for singing, and for all of you who have already blessed me so much this morning with singing of the hymns and with the discussion we had this morning. Every morning, well, every time I've been preaching, I've tried to learn something about this great city that we're in. And so the first night, I thought, well, what's important to Milwaukee? And I discovered a few museums and Milwaukee Power Tools. So I discovered Milwaukee Power Tools. Last night I thought I should learn the names of the places around Milwaukee. Found out that was a lot harder than I expected with some of the names that you have surrounding here. And this morning, I just reflected on my time here a little bit, and I thought about it, and I think I've had the largest range of temperatures that I've ever experienced within a single week period of time. I think we had like 30 degrees one morning when I woke up, and then today it's like 80 now. 50 degrees different. I couldn't believe it. I thought Michigan was crazy because we have snow and everything, but I don't know if I've ever experienced so much change in weather in such a short period of time. I mean, just look right now. Not an hour ago, it was dark, as you can imagine, and pouring rain. And now we have the sun is out, which I thank God for that. I can only imagine it must be difficult to plan things. We have a picnic next week. And I can only imagine that maybe it'll be pouring rain and you'll be like, nope, we can't have it. And then an hour later, here we have the sun again. It must be hard to keep your appointments. Keep your appointments. And so today, we're going to be talking a little bit about that. About keeping our appointments. If you will, pray with me as we begin. Dear Lord, thank you for this church, for the opportunity that we have to come together and to spend time specifically designed to communicate and to learn about you. We thank you for this time. I pray that we will learn to discover as we read the word what you have designed for this appointment. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. How many of you, since we've had a lot of sermon, I hope to discuss a little bit more than maybe normal because we've been hearing a lot of things. So how many of you are married? Yes, I thought most of you are married. So I'm not married yet, but I've been around a lot of people who are married. Good. So let me ask you a question here. How important would you say communication is? I looked up a study. I'm not sure how credible it is, but it kind of fell in line with my experience through my parents and the people that are around me. That is, aside from maybe God, communication is the second. So it didn't mention God. It had communication as the first most important thing for a relationship. The first most important thing. So imagine now that you set an appointment with your spouse, or for those of us who aren't married, with maybe a potential spouse, or or one of your relatives. And then something comes up and you don't manage to make that appointment. I can only imagine how the person who is waiting for you feels when you can't make that appointment. I had an experience on a little bit more of a lighter side. I had an experience not very long ago, about 2 weeks ago, where I received one of these car dealership scratch off in the mail. And being a college student with not a lot of money, I thought, might as well scratch it off. It says you can win up to $1,000. So I was like, let's try this. I'm not gambling because I didn't spend any money for it.
Oh,
So,
yes.
so I thought, well, let's see. So I scratched it up. Turns out, yes, I won. I found out later that I think pretty much every single person almost wins on those things, just so that they can get everybody in. It said you could win anywhere from $10 to the maximum of $1,000. And so I called the number that was on there. They were like, yeah, let's set up an appointment for you to come in and we'll see what you did. So I set up for the next day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I promptly forgot about it. And so I was in the barber shop the next day getting my hair cut. Now mind you, the car dealership is 40 minutes away. And I looked down at my phone and I'm like, oh yeah, I had that appointment. It's in 2 minutes. And so I decided not to go. I figured it's going to cost me more than $10 to go. And I wasn't going to make it anyway. But I can't help but wonder, what if I had made that appointment? What if I missed out on $1,000? Jesus has set an appointment with us. And I promise you that every time you make that appointment, you will get the maximum reward. You'll get the maximum reward. So we're going to look a little bit at a story of how this appointment is supposed to go. So we're going to start here with John. I believe we're in John chapter 5. So turn with me there to John chapter 5. John chapter 5 tells a very interesting story. And it's all centered around this point right here, the Pool of Bethesda. Now, the Pool of Bethesda is really interesting. They actually discovered this outside of Jerusalem. They were like, yeah, this is a real place. Just as it's described here, we'll read in a second how that is. And what the Pool of Bethesda means is the house of mercy. The house of mercy. And why is that the case? So let's begin John chapter 5 and verse 1. John chapter 5, starting in verse 1. It says, after this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool in Aramaic called Bethesda, which has 5 roofed colonnades. It's 5 levels, I think. So I'm not an architect, so you'll have to forgive me. In these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been an invalid for 38 years. What strikes me is that this is called the house of mercy. And it's filled with people who are sick. It's filled with people who are paralyzed and who are broken. And somebody who is there has been sick for 38 years. It doesn't seem like it's effectively healing the people that are there. If this person is 38 years with this thing and they aren't being healed, and we'll discover why this is the case. So let's continue a little bit farther on. One man was there who had been an invalid for 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be healed?" What a question to be asked. Do you want to be healed? 38 years I've been here. I want to be healed. Of course I want to be healed. The first thing that strikes me about this story is that this man has been in the house of mercy for 38 years. Not able to move. You know, sometimes it feels like we're in this state where we're continually sick. And we're unable to move. we're unable to even reach out or to heal ourselves. We may have been trying out some things, right? To try and get healing, and it hasn't happened. That might be physical healing, but that could be emotional, or that could be mental healing. Where it's like, I've tried out some stuff, like some medication. So I've been to people, but it doesn't seem like this is getting any better. And that is where this story is so amazing, because this man is there, sick for 38 years. He's trying what he thinks will work. But he's unable to move. Jesus makes the first move.
Amen.
Jesus is the one who has to reach out, because to be honest, I'm not able to heal myself. I'm not even able to walk at this point. I can't reach out to Jesus. But Jesus comes and he reaches out to this man. And we read on that he asks him, do you want to be healed? Do you want to be healed? That's a tough question to ask. Because all of us might say we want to be healed. But many of us have grown used to the dysfunction that's around us. You know, with people who are victims of abuse, oftentimes they stay in relationships that are abusive because that's what they know. And you may not even realize at this point that like something that's happening around you is dysfunctional. That's what you know. Do you want to be healed? And this man, he does want to be healed. He answers Jesus, yes, of course I want to be healed. And look what he says. The sick man answered him, sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. And while I am going, another steps down before me. So what's happening is that the tradition around this pool was that then when the waters began to move, that it was an angel who was moving them. And the first person to step into those waters was healed. And it may have worked, I don't know, because people were still there 38 years later, hoping that this would be the solution. But what's amazing to me is that one person could get healed. Only one. And you know who that one was? It was the healthiest of the sick people. There truly wasn't any mercy in the house of mercy. It was the strongest person made it. And this man is thinking that this is the only way that he can be healed. The only way to heal me is to get me into that water. And so that's what he asked Jesus. When Jesus is coming, he doesn't recognize who Jesus is. This is the beginning of Jesus' ministry. Nobody knows Jesus. So he thinks that Jesus is just somebody who can get him into the water and help him to be healed that way. See, often we hang on to things hoping that they will heal us. And we miss the one who can heal us. We miss the one who can heal us. Jesus makes the first move. And Jesus asks, do you want to be healed? And the man answers. But then Jesus does something somewhat unexpected, I'm sure even to the man. Because this is a sick man and he's expecting Jesus to maybe lead him into the pool, the tradition that he thinks that's going to save him. And Jesus says, get up, take up your bed, and walk. Get up, take up your bed, and walk. The only one who truly has the power to heal is this one right here. We might think that the house of mercy, whatever that is, will heal us. You might have heard stories about some tradition that might heal you. And people might be telling you, you could heal yourself. And even if people haven't told you that, you probably told yourself that. I know for me, when I'm dealing with something, with loss, even when I wasn't hired back to the job I was hoping to get, I sat down with myself after that happened. And I said, what is wrong with you? Talking to myself. I said, what is wrong with me? What can I do to fix me? What can I do to fix me? But I want to tell you that the only one who can fix you is Jesus.
Amen.
Jesus has the power to heal.
Amen.
So Jesus will find in his ministry, he can do a lot of things. Jesus can heal. Jesus can break the chains of those who are chained. He can drive the demons out.
Amen.
Even after 38 years, Jesus can heal you.
Amen.
He can free you. He can transform you and give you a new life. And here's the heart of it. Jesus makes an appointment. Now, I'm not saying that Jesus is not always with you. Jesus is always with you. But in this story, you see that Jesus makes an appointment. There's a specific time when this man is healed. And what is that time? John chapter 5 and verse 9 says, "And at once the man was healed and took up his bed and walked. Now that day was the Sabbath day. So the Jews said to the man who had been healed, 'It is the Sabbath day. It is not lawful for you to take up your bed.' But he answered them, 'The man who healed me, the man said to me, take up your bed and walk.'" The Sabbath day was the appointment that Jesus made to heal. And it's the same today. Jesus has made the Sabbath day to heal.
Amen.
It's supposed to do that. When we look back at Genesis chapter 2, it says that God created for 6 days. He created everything that was in the earth. And on the 7th day, he rested. The 7th day from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. Jesus rested. And what did he do? He made it a weekly day of rest. There's real power to rest. There's real healing power to rest. You know what they tell you when you're working out? When you're lifting weights and you're stretching your muscles and you need that, you're trying to get big, you know? They tell you that the most important thing that you could do is rest. If you overwork your muscles, they're going to break. They're going to not be able to function. To grow your muscles, you have to work and you have to rest. When we come to the topic of stress, rest can be one of the most important things. So I have been in college now for 3 years.
Wow.
3 years, yeah.
That's a lot.
And I can't say that I've experienced every possible stress you can imagine, but pretty close. So at the same time that I'm trying to pay for school, so I'm working, I'm also arguing with the financial office to give me more money. And I'm trying to get my schoolwork done and do papers and tests, and I'm trying to, everybody's telling you, you got to exercise or you're going to kill your body, so I'm trying to exercise, and play sports and things like that. And at the same time, we're like, you need the Word of God, and you need to spend time with Jesus. So I'm trying to spend time with Jesus. And you know what's the thing that goes first? rest. I never saw Sabbath the way I do now until I went to college, when every moment of every day is consumed by some type of stress. And it happens that way in jobs too, where you're continually thinking about what is going on next, and who do I need to talk to, and what appointment do I need to make, what presentation do I have coming up. And it's amazing the healing power that a day when you don't think about anything but Jesus. That's all that it is. Spending time with Jesus. And he made from the beginning a weekly day of rest. A time for family, as we see throughout. A time for worship. And a time for restoration. Exodus chapter 20 gives us the 10 Commandments. They're also given in Deuteronomy. But we usually turn to Exodus chapter 20 to look at the 10 Commandments. So let's go there. I want to bring something out here. So let's go to Exodus chapter 20. Genesis, Exodus, second book of the Bible. Exodus chapter 20. And let's look at verse 7. Verse 7, so Exodus chapter 20 and verse 7. Says this, "You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain." This is how the 10 Commandments go, most of them. So you look down to verse 12 and you say, or verse 13, it says, "You shall not murder, and you shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal." But look at verse 8. "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." It's not because the Sabbath is this restrictive rule that it's added here in the 10 Commandments. God is trying to get across the point, you need to remember this day. 6 days you can work, you can get everything done in 6 days, but you have to remember this day. Because you're not going to survive without it. It's an appointment that I've made with you for rest, for worship inside of your community. Everybody should come together on this day and worship me, and I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to give you a special blessing on the Sabbath. So why? Let's turn back to John chapter 5. Why do we see this response? John chapter 5, we read already, but I'm going to read it again. "So the Jews said to the man who had been healed, 'It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to take up your bed.'" Why do we have this response? And later you'll see it gets even stronger than this. It's not lawful for you to take up your bed. You see, maybe with good intentions, the leaders of the Israelites, and sometimes we can apply this to our time, wanted to keep the Sabbath holy as God commanded. So they began to place some restrictions on what you probably shouldn't or should do.